Hello, I'm Ray G4NSJ, and I must say I feel rather honoured to have been asked to speak to members of the National Radio Society of Ireland. Rather a privilege. I hope I don't bore you all too much. What I thought I'd do is, Mark said to me in the email, a subject of my choice, and I thought, well, I don't know, what do I talk about? I don't want to go on about aerials or whatever. So I thought I'd tell you my story, starting from when I was young, that's a long time ago, I'm 70 now, how I got into amateur radio and what happened between sort of then and now, really. Some people don't believe me when I say I took my first radio to bits when I was 5 years old. Just briefly, my grandmother was visiting us and she took me for a walk into the woods. I love the woods behind our bungalow where we lived. And even in those days, sadly, there was fly tipping. Someone had dumped a load of rubbish on the track leading into the woods. And on top was this valve radio, the old wooden 1940s or 30s, I suppose, valve radio. And I saw this, I wanted it. And I made her lug it home. So she lugged all this radio home, put it in the garden on the table that we had out there. And I went into my dad's shed, got some tools and took it to bits. Now, I know I was five because we moved from there when I was 5 years old. So I couldn't have been older. So that was my first radio. I took it to bits. I remember pulling valves out. I do remember it in the garden. I remember pulling valves out and my mum saying, be careful they don't break because they're glass. Obviously I didn't get the radio going, not at 5 years old. So that was the beginning. Then moving on quickly to 7 or 8 years old, one evening my dad was in the lounge tuning around on the big old valve radio we had there. And I could hear all these foreign stations, foreign language and stuff go. I thought, what's this? And he said, oh look, that's Moscow. I thought, Moscow? This is amazing. Anyway, after he'd finished, I said, can I have a go? And I started tuning around shortwave. That was the next step. Every evening I was tuning around the shortwave bands, listening to all these stations from all over the world. Of course, the trouble was they wanted to watch television, the one channel, BBC. Do you remember that one channel? We've now got 100 and something. So I had to get a radio of my own. My dad found me some old radio from work and that was put in my bedroom. I put up an aerial, bit of wire and the rest out of the window. But it wasn't particularly good. It wasn't as good as the one in the lounge. I was tuning around and I just wasn't getting the same amount of radio stations. So that wasn't good enough. Now, a friend of the family was a TV engineer. And whenever he came round to repair our telly, the old black and white thing, I was watching him, asking questions. I must have been 7 or 8 when I was telling him that my radio on shortwave wasn't too good. Anyway, a few days later, he turned up with a PCR. Do you remember that? There's one up there, look. PCR2, that one is. That's the one I had, except it had the black front. I believe, 6 to 22 megs, something like that. And he lugged it in from his car, put it in my bedroom on my table. In place, we took the other one away, connected the aerial, and I couldn't believe it. I was tuning around shortwave, fantastic. Long wave and medium wave as well. And I was getting a lot of stations. Now this was the daytime, and he said, you wait till tonight. And that night, I stayed up till, I don't know what time. Parents went to bed. As soon as they'd gone to sleep, I'm awake, radio on. I had headphones, he gave me headphones with it. And I'm there in my bed with the headphones on the bedside table, tuning around shortwave. That was it. I was definitely 100% hooked. It was fantastic. I used that radio, I don't know for how long, many years. Finally, that wasn't good enough because I'd heard about a trawler band. This was between 2 and kind of 3 point something megs, trawler band, where there's ships. And you're living on the south coast of the UK where I am. We got the English Channel, obviously, and all the shipping. Is it still, I think, the busiest shipping lane in the world? I wanted to hear the ships. So the PCR2, that had to go. I was lucky enough. I've been given a lot of things over the years. I was lucky enough to be given by the same TV engineer a Marconi CR100, and that was it. I thought I was in heaven. Big thing. Well, you know what they're like. I've got one over there. You'll see in a minute. The big box, the logging scale, the bands. What are they? 30? No, I think 30 kcs to 30 megs. I think 30 kcs. I couldn't believe it. I'm tuning around. I've got an exercise book. I'm logging stations, and it was on that one evening that I heard. Here is Tel Aviv. This is a test transmission. Please reply in condition B. I'm thinking, here is Tel Aviv. That's Israel. So I'm writing it down, checking the CR100 logging scale, making a note of that, and the date and the time. I've got this exercise book, which very soon filled up with shortwave radio stations. But apart from the broadcast bands and the shipping, there was other stuff. There's the army around 5 megs on Salisbury Plain. I was listening to army manoeuvres on Salisbury Plain. People in tanks talking to their commanding officer or whoever. All AM, of course, back then. It was fantastic. The chap that gave me the CR100, he did say permanent loan. He said, it's yours, but if ever you want to get rid of it, don't sell it, I'll have it back. You know, he obviously didn't want me to go and take it to bits like I used to when I was a kid, or go and sell it. But I did keep it for many, many years. I don't know what happened to it in the end, but it was a brilliant receiver. But what struck me then was the encouragement, not only from him, but other people. A chap, another friend of the family, he gave me a 1920s radio, wooden box, big valves in, strange looking valves, reaction controls and things on the front. That I never did get working. You needed a load of different batteries or power supplies, but a lot of people helped me, which is one of the main reason I make all these videos. You've probably seen all the videos I do. It's not just for fun. I'm not trying to tell people, you know, look what I know. It's to pass on knowledge. When I was around that age, with my CR100, I used to listen to the amateurs on 80 metres. They would talk about aerials, dipoles, end-fed aerials, ATUs, earth systems, and they would talk about how it all works, and they were knowledgeable chaps, the old boys. I'd listen to the old boys, and now I'm the old boy. I don't really often talk on 80 metres to people about it. Sadly, these days, I've noticed on the amateur bands, not many people discuss that sort of thing. They don't talk about building. I suppose they don't build things anymore. People don't. You go buy a black box, you know. This is my receiving setup here. You'll see this later. FRG7 that I got recently. Yaesu FRG7. So yeah, in those days, people would build their own ATUs. They didn't go and buy them like they do now. You wind a coil, a big coil, a tank coil. You get old tuning capacitors from broadcast radios, or if you could find them, wider spaced vanes for building your ATU. It was fantastic. Everything was built. And of course, the old boys on 80 and 40 metres and top band, they'd all be chatting about it. And I was a right nerd. I still am. Exercise book, I'm writing it down. They're discussing, say, dipole for 80 metres. Wants to be so-and-so length. Fed with so-and-so coax. I'm writing it all down and learning all the time, of course. I was very lucky because in Worthing, my hometown, there was GWM Radio. You may have heard of it, Army Surplus Shop, GWM Radio. They exported stuff all over the world. It was well known all over the UK. And they had loads of stuff. Les, the chap there, Les Grout. Lovely, what a name, Les Grout. He was a brilliant character. I almost lived in his shop. I'd go in there and he'd say, what do you want? You know, I don't know, he was that sort of person. I'd say, I've just come to have a look round, Les. Have you got any money? Well, I've got a fiver. Well, that's right, if you're spending your fiver, you can come in. If you said, well, I haven't got any money at the moment, right, off you go, get out. Just the way he was, it was fantastic. I kicked the bucket then, sorry about that. My waste paper bin. I bought loads of stuff from him. 52 set, 19 sets, 18 set, 38 set. You probably know all this. I won't go on. I don't want to make the video too long. You'll all doze off or go up the pub. And I got all this stuff going, you know, with the help of other people. I was learning all the time. Eventually, I'd been listening to the amateurs on shortwave. Eventually, I wanted to join in. So I got my Class B licence. Golf 8, Charlie Uniform Hotel, G8CUH. Cheerful Uncle Henry, as one of the locals used to call me. And I was on 2 meters, which was okay, a bit boring, 2 meters. I mean, it's HF, you know, I'm on 2 meters. But I had a Heathkit tour. Do you remember the Heathkit tour? That's TWOER, look it up. And crystal controlled AM transmitter, about 5 watts, I think. Only a small thing, super regen receiver. And you'd call CQ, CQ2, CQ2, G8, CUH, tuning low to high. And the receiver you would tune, listening for someone. And if you're lucky, someone else with their crystal controlled transmitter, not on the same frequency as mine, you know, they'd be saying, G8, CUH, yeah, this is so-and-so. Fantastic. So we had a lot of local contacts. I had a 4-element Yagi on a scaffold pole that I nicked from the local building site. I mean, what was I, 17, I think at that, I must have been 17 when I got the G8, I can't remember. So I'd go out and turn the scaffold pole, it was on the side of the shed, and aim it towards wherever. There's one friend of mine, Littlehampton, so he was that way. Another chap was in Shoreham, so I'd turn it around that way. And it was brilliant. I used that Heathkit tour for a long, long time. Eventually we all decided that, I think that it was 145 megs dead, the crystal frequency. So we all got on the same frequency, so we could operate proper simplex instead of people transmitting all over the place. And we could actually have a proper net rather than have to keep tuning to different people. Some people started using XPMR rigs. I remember a friend of mine had a Hudson, was it Hudson AM PMR rig? He put a couple of crystals in that, tuned it all up so he could join us. But as I say, I was stuck on 2 meters. I bought from the local radio club a B44. Do you remember the B44? VHF. I think there was the Mark II and the Mark something. I had both. One was a 3-channel thing and one was single channel. And I bought it from the local radio club for £5 and it was crystalled up for 70.26 megs. AM, of course. Well, not of course, AM. And I used to listen to the people on 70.26. One of them was local, mobile. There was one up the Downs, massive signal from him. He used to work stations all over the place. I couldn't hear them, of course. All I had was a dipole that I made stuck on the shed roof. Now, the transmitter worked, had the mic with it and everything. It was all ready to go. But I couldn't use it. I was a G8 and that was so frustrating. A little bit of time went by between the frustration of being stuck on 2 meters and my actually getting the Morse test. Because in that period of time, I got married, we had a baby, had a mortgage, bought a house, bought furniture. I was busy with all that stuff. But as soon as we'd settled in the house, I bought one of these. Who recognises that? Look, hang on a minute. There we are. How about that? Morse tutor, Daytong model D70. I bought one of those. It wasn't this one. I bought this one a couple of years ago because I saw it on eBay and I thought I've got to have that. It's exactly what I had back in those days. It was what I did. I put it on the passenger seat in the car, wherever I was going in the car. It was beeping away. Wherever I was in my shack, it's beeping away. I'm tuning around to find Morse on the radio. It took me 3 months to learn Morse code. I went to North Foreland, GNF, the coast station, and I did the 12 words a minute. 12 words a minute. Seems so slow now. And I passed. And the fantastic thing was they showed me round. There were 3 of us that took the test, and they showed us round after we'd all passed. We looked at all the gear. Now there was a chap there on 500 kcs. I know it's kilohertz, but that's what they called it then, and they still do, the 500 kc marine frequency. There was a chap there, I was watching him, the others were looking at something else, and he's on a straight key, bashing away, something like 30 more words a minute. And I'm in awe watching this chap. And he saw me out the corner of his eye. And when he'd finished this contact with whatever ship it was, he said, "That's how you do it." I said, "Well, I've just passed." And he said, "Oh, 12 words a minute." I mean, he wasn't being rude, he was laughing. And he said, "Get up to this sort of speed and you might get a job here." And I thought, oh, I'd love to. I'd love to work at one of the coast stations. Knighton Radio on the Isle of Wight, only down the road. The Isle of Wight, you can see it from here, down the beach. Well, not down the beach, you go up the downs, you can see it. It's only 30 miles, I think it's 39. Knighton Radio, they used to blast in here on 2182 kilohertz. I don't know, it's all kilohertz now. It used to be 2.182 megs. Now it's 2182 kilohertz. It was 2182 kilocycles. Going back, showing my age again. But 3 months of that got me my G4. And I didn't have an HF rig, not one that transmitted, but I had a 19 set that I'd got going receive-wise. So I dragged that out. Put some HT 600 volts on the transmitter on the 807, fired that up. I had the carbon mic, it was all original, and I'm on 80 metres CQ, G4NSJ 80 metres. And a chap from down the road answered me, one of the locals. He said, "Oh, congratulations on your G4. He said, "What are you using?" I said, "A 19 set with a carbon mic." Good grief. It wasn't long after that. I thought, well, I can't, 19 set. It covered top band just about, because it was 2 to 8 megs. You could go just below 2 megs. You could get top band. 80 metres, of course, and 40 metres. We weren't allowed on 5 megs then. I got fed up with that. A lot of the blokes were SSB. And I'm thinking, oh, I've got to go sideband, So I bought a Yaesu FT101B, £220. That was in the 70s. Good grief, £220. My brother lent me the money. Well, I think he lent me half the money. I had to pay him back. Because don't forget, I had this mortgage and a baby and a wife that didn't work. It's all down to me. The FT101B, I fired it up. We moved house shortly after that. I put up a dipole, 80 metre dipole, trapped at 40 metres, fed with whatever it was, ribbon, I can't remember. I think actually it was 75 ohm, twin, like the old telephones used to be. KW107 Supermatch, 80 metres. And I remember my first contact that evening, some chap in Europe somewhere, he said, "You're the biggest signal coming out of the UK this evening." Yes, that's it. I've arrived. I very rarely bothered with 40 metres. I was having so much fun on 80. It was fantastic. But then I wanted to go on top band. Some of the locals had a net on top band, so I had to get on there. I put up an inverted L, about 30 feet of vertical. I forget what the horizontal was. We had a very, very long garden. I was lucky. From the front fence to the back fence was 200 feet with a bungalow somewhere in the middle. Well, not the middle, somewhere, wherever. And I put up this inverted L. I was on top band, working people down in Spain, all over Europe, up in Scotland. I was getting 9+ reports on top band. And that's when I joined the GQRP club. Not that I was QRP. And the chap in Shrewsbury, what was the vicar's name that started it all? I can't remember. The Reverend Dobbs. Anyway, I still get the Sprat magazine now, the little Sprat magazine, fantastic. Lots of little constructional things in there, lots of articles. But top band, that became my favourite band. Top band at 80 metres, absolutely brilliant. And looking back, if on top band, if the S meter noise level was about S2, that was noisy. S2, bit of atmospherics around tonight, bit of a noisy band tonight, S2. Now, top band, well, it's normally 9 + 20 noise. If it's S9, the band's quiet. I mean, can you believe it? Sadly, I don't use top band anymore. It's just totally obliterated with noise. There we are, no point moaning about it. 80 metres, sometimes I can find a quiet spot where the interference seems to move around. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's probably switch mode power supplies and all sorts of stuff. loads of stuff. I've got a SDR, you know, the software defined thing I put on the computer. I look at 433 megs, where all the key fobs are and ring doorbells and stuff. And there's bleeps and buzzes and squirts and noises all over 433. I mean, that's a 77's amateur band. And some of these Chinese radios, of course, they're a bit wide. You can hear it on them, you know, when you're not on that frequency. What are they on? They're on 433 920. I haven't listed on 433 920. I usually switch it to AM because you can hear the bleeping and stuff there. Anyway, I'm digressing. Just bought a temperature thing, wireless temperature thing that I've got in the shed in a box where the tortoise is hibernating, just so I can look at the temperature indoors, make sure he's not too warm or too cold. And that interferes with our burglar alarm. It sets our burglar alarm off. Oh, I don't know, nightmare. Anyway, back to the proper good old days. Everywhere there wasn't this interference. You know, you could. I do remember giving stations a report, something like, you know, you're 5 and 3. You think these are, well, how could it be 5 and 3? You know, readability 5, signal strength 3. The noise level is above 3, isn't it? Unless you live out on a farm somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But I do remember giving people, you know, reports like that, 5 and 3. Now, unless it's 9 plus 20, you can't hear them. No, it's not quite that bad. Not on all bands, obviously, but down on, well, 5 megs, unfortunately, is wiped out. I like 5 megs, 60 metres. I was on there from the beginning, back, was it 2002? In fact, I'm still on there, but I have to do something that I never ever wanted to do. I've got a computer, you'll see that in a minute, a Surface Pro thing. I listen to Hack Green, you know, the web SDR. I listen to that on the 5 meg frequency because I can't hear anything here. There's buzzing, there's 20 over 9 of noise and interference. And I can hear some stations if they're really strong. But I was chatting to a chap in Scotland the other day. And I said to you, I've got to admit, I'm listening to you on Hack Green. And he said, oh, I don't know why people do that. I said, well, because, I said, here, you know, on RF, actually on 5 megs, all I can hear is interference. You know, you're being totally obliterated, which is such a shame. In fact, here's a little video clip. Have a look at this. This is 5 megs, okay, on the Kenwood transceiver, and then immediately switched over to the Hack Green on the computer. Have a quick look. You can see the difference. You can see what I mean.
Just having a rant to you about J.I.J. Colin. All right, have a good day. I hope everything's okay with you.
So you can not only see on the S meter what I mean, you can hear what I mean. Actually, the chap on Hack Green, he wasn't too strong into Hack Green. They're normally 9 plus into that. Where is Hack Green? It's up near Manchester, isn't it, somewhere? The RAF secret nuclear bunker or something. Not sure what aerial they've got. I think they've got a pretty good wire aerial, probably a dipole or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I have to listen to Hack Green, and I don't want computers in the shack. I mean, okay, I've got the SDR. Someone gave me that. That's why I've got that. Someone gave it to me, so I thought, well, I might as well use it. But I didn't ever want computers anywhere near my amateur radio gear. You know, computers are a separate thing. They're brilliant. I have used a computer in the past for PSK31, RTTY, that sort of thing, just for fun to see what it was like. It didn't last more than a couple of months, and I got bored with that. But there we are. I just can't do it. I said to the chap, if I don't listen to Hack Green, then forget 5 megs. I can't go on 5 megs, just can't operate there. My worry has been, I don't want to be calling CQ. People are answering me and I can't hear them, because then you're going to get complaints. You know, people will start saying, well, you know, don't transmit. If you can't receive, keep off the air. Quite rightly, of course. Another thing we've got here in Worthing is 4 meters. There's a huge group of us on 4 meters, not using the B44 on 70.26 AM. We're using Tate XPMR rigs, which are 25 watts, 4 channels, or Chinese 4-meter stuff. I've got 5 4-meter. I've got 3 Chinese ones and 2 Tates on 4 meters. Yeah, 4 meters is really active here in Worthing and along this part of the south coast, Sussex, West Sussex around here. It's really active. It's brilliant. It started off a year or two ago, just 1 or 2 of us. I think there were 3 of us started on 4 meters. Other people got to hear of it. Oh, 4 meters. Oh, that's a thought. Let's have a go on 4 meters. So yeah, there's mobiles, there's all sorts on 4 now, which is really good. We've got a couple of repeaters, 70 SEMs in Worthing, 2 meters in Worthing. There's a couple of digital ones. I don't do the digi stuff myself. Digital repeaters and things. So there's quite a lot of activity here that's only grown up really over the past 2-3 years. It was pretty quiet before then. Anyway, do you want to have a quick look around the shack, or the radio room as I call it? Just give you a rest from staring at my face for a minute. Little bit of a mess in here. There's the sorry about the reflection. There's the Surface Pro, which I listen to Hack Green on. This is 10 meters here, 10 meter SSB. Power supplies, CR100 of course, which is really nice. That's my favourite. Then there's a 10 meter radio there, all mode portable thing, well, mobile, sorry. A Tate 25 watt radio there. That's for our local 2 meter repeater with its power supply. All these are for HF. These aerial switches, I don't use them on VHF, UHF. SWR meter, ATU, and the Kenwood transceiver. There's a very old 2 meter rig there, which is rather nice, a trio, Kenwood trio. This Linko here, DX70 is it, only works on 6 meters, HF side doesn't work. 4 meters. 2 meter 70 SEMs. Radio there that I listen to the Marine band on. A scanner that I don't use, power supply. Radio here on our 70 SEMs repeater, dedicated for that. Shelves of bits and pieces. Oh, and my TYT handheld there, which does digital stuff as well, which I don't really use a great deal. A scanner there. This is all receiving only here, receiving only. FRG7. What's that? Texan S2000. Low HF150, lovely receiver that. Another Kenwood TS570D, receive only. Well, it does transmit, but receive only. Bit of a bodge, on-off switch for the mini whip, active antenna, which is out in the garden, and there's a general view around what I call the radio room. PCR2 receiver up there, and then stuff. There we are, loads of stuff. So that's it. That's the shack, the radio room. A little bit of a better view, just to give you an idea of the sort of mess that I've got here. I forgot to mention when I first passed the Morse, I got my G4. For the first couple of years, I used phone, of course, but rather than the mic, I was on the key. I loved it. I loved CW. I still do. I don't do so much these days because there aren't so many stations on CW. Of course, all the shipping's gone. The military have gone on the key. It's a shame. And the ones on, I do tune around now and then, 80 meters, 20 meters. A lot of them are so fast, I just can't keep up with it. I don't get enough practice. Just going back to that buzzing on 5 megs. That's a switch mode power supply, and it moves. It'll clear 5 megs. So I make contact with someone, I can hear them direct. Then I lose them because suddenly up it comes. I've got an idea. It's next door, it's over the road, they've got solar panels over the road, everyone's got switch mode power supplies. It's such a shame, but there we are. Yeah, I forgot to say for all the receiving stuff here, long wave or VLF up to 30 megs, I use a mini whip active antenna, which I find pretty good noise wise. It's on a 25-foot fiberglass fishing pole right at the end of the garden, as far away from houses as possible, and that is pretty good. Also, I forgot to mention we've got a 10-meter repeater. How about that? 10 meters. A bit quiet in the winter, of course, but when there's a bit of an opening in the summer months like this year, we had people going into it from America. Brilliant, coming into our 10-meter repeater from America. Fantastic. We got the transmitter at one house and the receiver at another house. The receiver was here, but there were problems, with interference. It's now with a chap in a village not too far away where the noise level is quiet. So yeah, we've got a 10-meter repeater as well, which is fantastic. It is such a shame that all this noise is on the HF bands, because, as I've said, top band 80, they are my favourites. I've never really been VHF, UHF. I use it as a telephone, basically. The repeaters are handy. I'm mobile on 77s, 4 metres sometimes, 2 metres. I'm mobile. It's great as a local thing for a local chat. But I remember a friend of mine years ago, he had was it a tonner, was it a cross element, I don't know, a huge 2-meter thing up on his chimney with a rotator. And I've just been talking to someone in Hampshire, from where we are in Sussex. Something's dinging. And I said, oh, Hampshire, oh great, okay. I've just been talking to someone in America. And I've spoken to people in Australia on 10 metres, just using a CB aerial. That I use what is it? Is it a Sigma? The 5/8 10-metre aerial. It's only 6 foot off the ground. The bottom of it is on the fence post, 6 foot off the ground, and bit of an opening on 10, straight into Australia, Indonesia, America. I spoke to a chap through the repeater in Boston, in America. He was in Shoreham, about 5 miles that way, and we're chatting via American repeater. Terrific. This is why, I don't know, VHF, UHF, even with all the beams and the rotators and stuff and on sideband, yes, you could do very well, but it's never appealed to me. One thing I did many years ago, and I don't want to bore you now because I'm rambling on a bit, on 10 metres, I said, as this was FM, I was saying, hello, G4NSJ, let go of the mic quickly and you can hear yourself. It goes round the world, the signal, and comes back. So you say G4NSJ, and you might just hear NSJ actually receiving it. Fantastic. All around the world, bouncing like that, all around the world, back to my receiving area, and I can hear myself. Absolutely brilliant. I've never been into EME. I don't like Earth, Moon, Earth and stuff, and Earth, Mars, Earth and whatever, and Saturn. No, they don't do that, do they? I've never been into that. And I just love shortwave. The shortwave broadcast bands, got a list up there of all the bands. What is there? 25 metres, 31 metre band, 9 megs, 22 metre band, 13 megs. Okay, a lot of it is Radio China these days, as you probably know if you've tuned around. But there are a lot of other things as well on the broadcast bands. I've heard, there's loads. There's Turkey, there's Romania, Radio Romania, there's all sorts. Between the amateur and the broadcast bands, there's aircraft, 8 megs, 11 megs. There's the North Atlantic route for the long-haul aircraft going to America and from America. They're on HF, single sideband. Can hear them. What else? In Ireland, of course, where you are, Shannon Air Radio, Shanwick, all that lot. They come romping in here on sideband. They're around, they're all over the place. I've got a whole list somewhere. Listen mainly on 5 megs to Volmet, isn't it? The weather forecast. So there is a lot to listen to. People say to me, shortwave, there's nothing on shortwave, is there these days? Nothing on shortwave. I just say to them, have a listen, have a tune around. Just going back to ATUs for a minute. This is an L match I made years ago. Goodness me, absolutely years ago. Oh, it's not pretty. That doesn't matter, it works. Look at that. That'll match all sorts of end-fed things and vertical things. I used to mark this 80 metres, 40 metres, mark it with little bits of paper. A bit crude, but look at that, that works perfectly. And I must have made that, I don't know, 30 years ago, maybe more. So that's it, my homebrew L match. Yeah, great fun building ATUs in those days. One thing I really liked, this sounds daft, I know, I used to love sitting in the shack at night, top band, S meters hovering about S1, listening to the crackling of distant electrical storms. You know, that kind of, the storms could be thousands of miles away. I used to sit there, I don't know how long, it seemed like hours, just listening and watching the S meter. Fantastic days. Pi Cambridge, Pi Westminster, Bantam, do you remember those? I had a Westminster crystalled up on 2 metres. Pi Cambridge I had on 4 metres. Again, 70.26 AM. Used that from home. Eventually, when I got the G4, the Westminster, what was that? I think that was on 2 metres. Other things to mention that I had: 22 set, 62 set, the C12 bit of army kit, all made by Pi, weren't they? The C12 was lovely. A friend of mine had one. I never did. I never had one of those. Fantastic bit of gear. They were, the C12, you're lucky to get a few watts out of it. They weren't powerful rigs at all. I think the 19 set, if you got 10 watts out of the 807, you were doing well. One powerful radio I did have. I had the 52 set receiver and the transmitter. Do you remember the 52 set? Fantastic bit of kit. The transmitter had an 813 in it, and I built this power supply, 2000 volts on the anode. I got this huge transformer from the local army surplus place. It was a 1000. I think it's something daft like 500 milliamps. Absolutely lethal. And I used a couple of mercury vapor rectifiers. You know, these big valve things. Fantastic. And luckily enough for the 813 heater, I forget the current and the voltage now, I actually got an 813 heater transformer, again from the army surplus place. That was fantastic. I mean, building the power supply, for the transmitter for the 813, it was lethal. As I say, I built it in a huge box, and the front of the box had a door on it, and I put a micro switch in there that released a relay which connected some fat wire wound resistors to the HT to get rid of that, anything left, big paper smoothing capacitors. It cut off the mains. It did, when you opened the door, everything was cut off, grounded, earthed and everything. I thought it was worth going to all that trouble. I didn't want to get killed, obviously. What else have I written here? Yeah, I really miss those days. They were fantastic. They weren't pioneering days, as going back to the 1800s, but for me they were. I was discovering, I was learning. It was, I don't know, it was just fantastic. Anyway, have a quick look at this. This is aerials in the garden. I was going to take the video camera out there, but the wind today is so much you can't hear what I'm saying. That's the what's that? That's a tri-band aerial, which it covers 6, 2 and 70 sems, and to the right of that is the 10 metre, the CB aerial for 10 metres. So they both, that's right down the end of the garden. They work well. There's the 4 metre aerial. That's what is it? A Sirio CX something or other. I forget. That's a 4 metre aerial on a 20-foot pole. The tri-bander was also on a 20-foot pole. And there is the mini whip, the active antenna. Not terribly good photos, I know. But you can just see right at the very top of the fishing pole, 25 feet up, is the little active antenna. So that works extremely well. And again, right away from the house. The 4 metre aerial, when it was near the house, I wasn't getting out to the north at all because the house was in the way. Further down the garden, I get a good east and west coverage, because there's absolutely nothing east and west. You can see right down that way. So it's really good. On the house there, you can see on the chimney, that's the 70 2-metre collinear thing with a white stick, and the redundant pole on the back of the house. That used to be what they call a Ringo Ranger. Do you remember those? 2-metre collinear thing. That now supports the centre of the doublet, which is about 132 feet. Yeah, it's cut for 80 metres, fed with 300 ohm ribbon. So that supports the centre of that. That works pretty well, but of course going over the house as it does, it does pick up interference. I don't have, friends of mine have got the ICOM, is it 7300, 7400, yeah, with the is it pan adapter waterfall business, all that. I've got no modern gear like that. The most modern I've got is the old Kenwood for HF TS570D, which I quite like. I've always felt there's no point, what are they, £1,200, something like that? There's no point in buying a bit of gear like that when I don't have a great deal of room for decent aerials, and the noise level is just horrendous. I've always thought it's like buying an audio amp. You know, why spend £1,000 on a brilliant stereo audio amp when you've got a pair of dreadful speakers? There's no point in having the amp. So there's no point in me spending a lot of money on an HF rig when I haven't got the aerial, and the noise level is high, of course. Going back to the 52 set transmitter, I think that was Control Grid mod, wasn't it? You'll remember. You'll be saying, oh yeah, that's right, I remember that. Control Grid modulation, carbon mic. I remember when I first fired it up on 40 metres, I called CQ, and this chap came back to me from somewhere up north, and I remember he said, are you next door to me? It was the signal, I don't know what power it was running with the 813, but the signal, he said it was amazing. And I was so pleased. That's the first time I tried it on 40 metres. So that was my first contact with the 52 set. I was just about to end the video and I thought of something else. From my shed down the garden, I could see next door's kitchen window. They had a fluorescent light, you know, the strip lights. And as I'm talking in the mic, it's lighting up their kitchen. This fluorescent light is modulating. You know, the light was switched off, it was dark, and as I'm chatting, it's lighting up their kitchen. And I remember the chap said, oh, you know about electrical stuff. Why does my light do that? He said, I've changed the tube, I've changed the starter. Oh dear. And the other neighbour used to come round. He used to knock on my shed door, this old boy. And he'd say, I can hear you on my television again. Oh dear. I mean, they were fine, you know, they were okay, the neighbours, but those were the days of, you know, band 1 telly, band 3 telly, so it was TVI, a major problem, especially with an 813 running on the 52 set. Okay, I think that's about it. As I said, I could just ramble on for another hour, probably 2 or 3 hours, but you don't want that. So I shall end the video here. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've found it interesting. And as I said before, not got too bored. Now you can go to sleep or go off down the pub. Thanks for watching. Perhaps hope to do another one at some stage. Take care. Bye bye for now.